Okay, so I am going to officially call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m. This is our second official meeting of the Jedi Committee. I'm having a really good time saying that. I think we should just rename it the Jedi Council because that sounds way better.
Right. We know what it means.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the first point on the agenda, beyond calling the meeting to order, is audience participation via Zoom. Do we have any audience members?
We did not have anyone sign up to speak.
Okay.
We do have a couple people watching with us, but nobody signed up to actually speak.
Okay. So we will move on to the meat and potatoes of tonight's meeting, which is our discussion of the Community Relations Subcommittee. I confess that I did a very, very hard skim of Robert's rules, but I believe I need to ask for a motion from the floor to open the discussion into the Community Relations Subcommittee. Is that right, Daisy? I see a nod.
Yes, because I was reading it too.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Okay. So Dave has moved. We need a second.
I second. Oh, I yield. I'll yield.
Okay. So Emmanuel is second. So now we are opening the discussion as to the Community Relations Subcommittee. I will start by saying Shannon sent some great information. There were some attachments and some links, and I hope that everyone has had the opportunity to review that information or to pull some information of your own. I have a couple of thoughts, but I would really like to hear what you all have come up with. So without further ado, I'm going to yield the floor to whoever would like to start, and we can kind of work our way around the room. Or I could start.
Lavelle, so what we used to do with council meetings is, as you see people on your screen, if you just want to call on them and give them the opportunity to talk, and then we can circle back if anybody has anything to add after everybody's had a turn. It kind of worked well when we did that for council. So
thank you, Shannon. That's exactly what we will do. Emmanuel, you are to my right on the screen. So we'll start with you.
You just give Shannon right away to me, huh? Okay. Yeah. So the community relations is one of the things that I was, as a goal, I was thinking about is to proactively take an active interest in community challenges. We don't know what are the needs of our community yet. So I think that it will be a good thing as we build this relationship. We know the exact needs of our community.
All right, that's a great point. I see you've gone on mute, so I'm assuming.
Yeah. So what do we? When you're done, do we say I pass the baton to somebody else? Shannon?
Yield the floor? Is that the terminology?
We're
gonna get there.
Okay. All right.
I like it. All right. So the baton will go from Emmanuel over to Jeremy.
Coming from you live in the storage closet at the PD. I did review some of the information that Andrea had mentioned in the last meeting and kind of how that breaks down. A lot of great information on there and trying to formulate how this would work here in Twinsburg and how this committee or council can apply some of those things to make the impact that we're looking to make. Myself and Larnie have already been part of working with Destiny Church with some youth in the area, and it's still a work in progress of getting that group back fully with it. But I think that that involvement, that type of involvement with the community opens up a lot of doors for this group to be part of. So I think thinking about that as a whole of all of us that could be very helpful. And I'll yield my time to the rest of the group here.
Thank you, Jeremy. Daisy?
Thank you, Chair. When I think of community involvement, I think of the residents in the city of Twinsburg, and which I do a lot of. I visit a lot of people. I ask them, what do they perceive, or what do they want, or did you want to get involved? And a lot of them will tell me, yes, just tell me when, the time. And my involvement, when I think of that, I think of all the companies that we have in the city of Twinsburg, and how they could tell us some things that they want us to do for them as well as the residents. So I think what I would do is start with the residents first, then work with the communities, the businesses, and to get involved with what we're doing. Because in order for this group to be successful, I think we have to go out and talk to the residents, talk to the businesses, see what their needs are, see what we come up with as goals, and just work together on it. And I do believe that companies do want to be a part, because there are some companies in the city of Twinsburg whose mission statement is to work with the city of Twinsburg. I know of a couple of them already. I don't know of all of them, but if that's one of your goals and objective for a company to become involved, that's good with me. And that's something that I like doing. I could, or if I can, and I would like to work with some of you, all of you, in getting the residents and some of the companies involved in this project. Thank you. I'm yielding now.
Thank you, Daisy. That's fantastic. Dave,
Thank you.
we're coming to you.
Thanks, Lavelle. Lavelle, just to clarify, is it my understanding that we're trying to find out the goals and objectives for each one of these subcommittees, and we're just throwing these ideas out there, so when that subcommittee goes out there, they kind of take these marching orders? Is that
Yes.
what we're
So
we're
gonna focus these next couple meetings exclusively on getting the subcommittees kind of armed to go out and do the next steps.
Okay, because, and I think that's great, but I think with this first one with community relations, I think what we're going to find is that all three of these subcommittees have a community relations obligation or component to it. And they're going to be just different how they go about it. And I know that somebody had mentioned, or multiple people had mentioned, about a survey, resident survey, and whether or not we could do something like that online through SurveyMonkey. And I think particularly with community relations, it's important if we could come up with some of those survey questions, or at least general ideas that we want to put out there to put out to the residents, because I really think that in the community relations, that's going to define that subcommittee. I mean, those are just my thoughts on it. And I know that it's going to be hard to get that out there and get the information back, quickly. But my thought would be that if that subcommittee could kind of make that one of their first agenda items, maybe we could go about getting that survey out while they continue to meet. So maybe we can get that information back sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's a great point. Do you have more? I don't want to cut
That's
you
it.
off.
I'm sorry. Thanks.
Okay,
No,
no
thank
problem. Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, I think I'm agreeing with everything that has been said. I think it's really important that this group and all of the subcommittees make it as easy as possible for the residents to chime in, right? One of the things that we heard when we did the citywide survey was, they're very upset about misinformation and bad information on Facebook and bad information about the city and those kind of things. And, I want to make sure that this committee and all the subcommittees are getting not only accurate information, but an accurate portrayal of what's going on in the city of Twinsburg, right? I think it's vital that we ensure that we are working on the quote correct problems, right? And the only way that we're going to do that is to get involved involvement from as many people as possible, and we have to make that as easy as possible. Again, whether it's a survey, whether it's inviting people to these meetings. I see there's a couple people attending this evening, whether it is, posting the meeting minutes for this meeting so people know what is going on, those kind of things. The easier that we can make it, the better. I will yield.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. Maureen?
I would agree with what people are saying as well. Like I feel like we can't, with this community relations, we need to find out, get a feel for the community, and really once we have more information on that, then I think we can define our goals. But it's difficult to do that until we have a little bit of an idea of where, until we get something put together. And I'll yield.
Thank you. Larnie?
Hey. Come on the same page, just like everyone else is saying. I'm on the same page. With coming up with questions, I think what we have to figure out, I know COVID has put a damper on, us meeting up, not us, but like as a community, us putting on events and things like that. We can do community engagement and get things out. So I do think doing that Survey Monkey or something like that for the community sooner than later. So I guess we have to figure out how can we move on this now, so it's just not more talking, no action. I know for the most part, everyone has social media. So I think it'd just be our position, I guess, or our responsibility to not just have it on like a Twinsburg website, but, everyone has a network they're connected to. Everyone has people that respect them or that watch their moves on social media. So if as soon as the community or however we do it, get these questions together and we set up in a link, we get on our social media, we can get it blasted out and hopefully get, something back in a week and, just get moving from there so we can start getting some traction on the community outreach.
Okay, that's great. Incorporating our networks beyond just the standard Twinsburg. It's really good. All right, so I'm coming over to Asia. Hi.
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I was just looking over it, and what really made me like that this committee portion, the subcommittee, was the mentorship possibility, working with youth, bringing different youth together. I used to work with a youth group, so that's probably why that's a little bit more near and dear. So like images, roadblocks, finding things to kind of help the kids grow and be able to work together of all different races and backgrounds, things like that. Because I feel like that's like what's missed. We have a lot of diversity in Twinsburg, but the kids a lot of times still stay with their own cultural group. So, trying to kind of get other girls or guys together was like, for me, was kind of a big deal. I know that we're separate from the schools, but I know the schools may be able to give us just some information about the community needs of different families, or that could use outreach of maybe shoes, clothes, food, like from the stores that may not mind donating, because without basic needs for a lot of the families, a lot of this stuff doesn't help in regards to bridging. I did like the events, thinking of like a game night or a movie night in the park, just bringing everyone together. So that's when I seen this group, that's what kind of things I were looking forward to or thinking we could possibly do. And I yield my time.
Thank you. Thank you, Asia. That's great. Michael, did you want to weigh in?
Sure. So, I think that when you think about community relations, you have to think of the community as a whole. So community as a whole, meaning, as some of you already brought up, the different generations. And so I come from a kind of environment and culture of there being multi-generations even within this community. And so how this committee will be able to touch each and every one of those generations, kind of bring them together, kind of get them to understand the work that this committee is going to be doing and kind of moving those things forward. So I think that's going to be really important for this committee as a whole. And then really kind of touching on certain topics that are near and dear to the community in regards to our safety forces, in regards to even bringing in the workforce and that kind of thing, and how we interject those things into community relations. So that's kind of my thought But of course, I have my HR hat on right now. So
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with your hat.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. All right, Jeffrey?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Some of the same ideas of soliciting feedback from the community on their experiences living here in Twinsburg, excuse me, and the ways of making it a better environment for them if they've had a negative experience or what have you. Also, how to bring the community together as far as the safety forces are concerned. Interacting with one another, as well as the businesses. I like Dr. Walker's ideas of incorporating the businesses into our way of thinking about the community and getting them engaged in our community. And then the whole idea of organizing events that bring people together. I know a couple of years ago, we used to have the Taste of Twinsburg. We could do something like that where we bring different food types, ethnic foods and things like that as a means of bringing people together and communicating with one another. So just coming up with different ideas as far as organizing events that will bring people together. And I'll yield my time.
Thank you. Crystal?
Good evening. Lots of thoughts about this subject area. I definitely don't call children's services. My kids are fine. They're just being in their natural element. That's my first disclaimer. Second, I mentioned during the meeting that I think that we should have principles for engaging the community just to make sure that we are not tokenizing folks and that we have just making sure that we are honoring the people who are providing feedback because they are providing a service to us, especially folks who are underrepresented, that we're asking them for something. So frontline communities, minority groups, realizing that they're not the majority and we're asking them to come out because we really value their opinion. And so that may mean that we have to incentivize participation at some point. But I like to reference the JEMEZ principles, JEMEZ principles, if you're looking it up. Those are the principles that I think are just guiding principles for how you should govern yourself when working with community. There are lots of other standards out, but that's the one I like to reference the most. Surveys are great, and I think they work. But then there are also those folks that may know how to access the internet and may not. And so, but in this reality, we're probably gonna have to have virtual convenings. And so surveys are great. And then I also think community conversations, though they will not be in person, they may be via Zoom. I think there are ways that we can do that. And there may be some community groups that can help partner with us to facilitate those community conversations. But I think that can be a tiered approach where we have some that are focused on the community and some that are focused on business to do an assessment of needs and perceptions so that we can get an idea of what are those perceptions in the community and what are the needs. But those are the things that I think the real challenge is for us to come up with what are the questions that we want answers to, that really are the overarching themes that go over all of our work. But that's what I see as the major body of work.
Thank you, Crystal. Akil?
I think you guys have said it all. But I'm just a team player right now. I'm just kind of listening in, and I think making sure that we go out to our community and engage them first so that we can really get a roadmap of where we'd like to go is probably the most important. And I think that as I kind of listen to everybody, that's what it seems like we're all saying, And I think then that'll help us better have a direction on, what we ultimately need to do once we hear from all those that have a part in making our city successful. So I won't repeat much more, but I'm in agreement with mostly what everyone else has already said.
Thank you, Akil. Mary Yates?
Yes, hi everyone.
Hi.
We've got some great feedback so far. I think, for me, my mindset is kind of long term for this group. And so when we look at ways we can engage our community, I'm far beyond Zoom. I mean, I think, we're going to have 5 or 6 meetings and we're going to be into the summertime, and hopefully we're doing things a little bit different. But looking at kind of the big picture, I liked what Crystal said is perception and needs. I think those are really specific terms and finding a way, because I think all of our perceptions about how we are as a community are different based on our life experiences, based on who we are today, and a lot of different things, our roles in the community. So for me, as Dave talked about, survey, and I think really trying to get our finger on the pulse of the community and where we stand with a lot of these very kind of sensitive topics is important for me. But again, I think I look at the different sectors of Twinsburg, the business community, our residents as a whole, and then I kind of have the school placed in one, and I think they all kind of overlap, and as Michael said, the different demographics. I think we have those different demographics that we need to hear from in the entire community. Figuring out a way to engage our business district, figuring out a way to engage our youth and our students, figuring out a way to engage our core demographics as residents, as well as our seniors, and seeing how those perceptions and needs of what we're doing and how we're doing it in Twinsburg is what I'd love to see this particular subgroup kind of come out. And I don't think it can be done all at once, and that's just my I think there's going to be parts of that this group will have to work through. I love the fact of organizing this group, supporting and organizing events for the community, because I think that sends a message to the community of the importance of this, and I guess the engagement that this group hopes to have with Twinsburg. So again, I'm excited. I don't know that I said anything new, but I think for me, we kind of have this big picture of community engagement, and I'm excited about the way that this subcommittee can start narrowing that down to really, start making a difference in Twinsburg. So with that, I'll pass.
Thank
If
you.
I can add something, real quick. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Absolutely. Nope, you're fine.
I think that, this is a great subcommittee. But I also want this subcommittee to also be cognizant that, we all love Twinsburg. All of you are residents of Twinsburg. I'm kind of the outsider, kind of working here at Twinsburg, but from what I see, I love Twinsburg right now as well. But I want us to be cognizant as well that as we're moving forward through this process and through, putting these things together, that, this subcommittee may run into some resistance. And I just want us to be cognizant of that there may be residents, there may be businesses, there may be folks who don't want to see this type of work move forward in Twinsburg. And I just want that to also be on, especially this committee's mindset as we move forward. I don't want to be Donald Downer, but I just want us to be cognizant of that as we're thinking about putting together, things to bring the community together. That what happens when we run into that resistance? Then what do we do? How do we engage those residents, those businesses who are resistant to this type of work? And that should also be on our mindset as well, at least at least one half of our mind as we're moving forward. So I just want us to be cognizant of that as well.
Thank you, Michael. You raise a great point, because everybody's here because they want to be, right? But there are some people that may not want something like this to move forward. So that's an excellent point.
So true.
So I had a couple of thoughts, and I wanted to wait until everybody else kind of weighed in. I spent some time looking at the information that we had, and then a couple of other communities. And one of the things that Mary Yates said really struck me, because he's looking at the long-term big picture. And I think that one of the things we have to consider is the fact that we're not going to get the answers we want overnight. Like Larnie, I think it would be amazing if we were to turn around a survey in a week, but I don't think it's going to be possible. And I think the responses that we get in that amount of time may not be representative of the community. So I think one of the first things that we have to do is really sit back and take a realistic look at how much time it may take for us to put together a workable plan. So one of the, I think it was Beaverton, Oregon, had a really great article and set out all of their diversity initiatives, and it took them a year. They had a committee similar to this, and it took a full year for them to develop a strategic plan that was workable for their community. And it started with what we're talking about right now, which is just collecting information. So I think that, you know, yes, we are limited in our ability to bring people together, but that doesn't mean that we're stuck with just one way of doing things. Sorry, it's my husband in the back. You know, we could do surveys. We could also do focus groups via Zoom. We could engage with our local leaders and have them call in their wards. We could have business leaders come in a meeting. We could do interviews, right? I mean, we mentioned engaging with the senior community. We can have virtual town halls. And while it's certainly not ideal, and I love the idea of doing some of these things outside in the summer, I think that if we want to get results within the next quarter, we are going to have to focus on doing things virtually. But I also want us to think bigger than just doing one thing. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. I mean, we really aren't reinventing the wheel. There are lots of resources out there. There are lots of other communities that have done this work. And I think if this subcommittee takes some time to say, we're going to do some research before we come up with questions, before we determine how we're going to reach out to the community, I think it's going to put us in a much better position to get a deeper, more broad idea of what our community wants, what they need. I love that perceptions versus needs. I think that's something that we really didn't talk about in our first meeting, but is really critical, because sometimes the way people perceive things is not reality. So I think we need to put some time and effort into that. But I also just want us to be cognizant of the fact that this won't happen overnight. And I think that if we expect it to, we're all going to be disappointed. So those are my 2 cents. That being said, I would love to walk away from this meeting with 2 things. One is somebody who's willing to chair the subcommittee, and 2, and a set of action items for that subcommittee. Even if it's, we're going to pull data from 10 communities and distill it down, so the next time we all meet together to talk about this subcommittee, we'll have an idea of the direction we want to go. Not even necessarily coming up with questions at this point, but just saying, we know we want to do a survey. We know we want to try to do focus groups. We know we want to engage the business community. I think if we try to do too many things at one time, we're going to fail. And I don't think any of us wants to do that. So those are my 2 cents. At this time, the chair will entertain volunteers from the floor to chair the community subcommittee, or co-chair if time is an issue. Feel free to unmute and volunteer. Continue to stay muted if you would not like to volunteer. Asia, you're smiling. And I think that that means something. Your heart is moving. I really do think we're going to be challenged if we all try to do all the things. Because I don't know about you, but it's only a matter of time before my 6-year-old starts running around behind me looking for dinner, right? You could probably hear him. He's in the basement. We banished everybody for purposes of this meeting, and for what Rich has going on back there. So if anybody's willing, Asia, you're unmuted.
Well, I don't mind helping. I just don't really want to lead it, but I help out however I can, whoever leads the group.
Okay.
Lavelle, can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
I think we have, with the numbers that we have in the 3 subcommittees, we're roughly looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, 5 to 6 people, maybe 4 or 5 people per committee, subcommittee. Is that right? And,
yes, 4 to 5.
Okay. And we have already internally kind of divided the 3 council people, 1 on each, and the 3 city employees, the mayor, myself, and Michael, 1 on each. So really, from a resident standpoint, we would ask if we could just find out who would like to be on this committee, knowing that we have only a limited number of people, and then maybe they could amongst themselves figure out who's on it and then pick that chair. But I think we have to come out of here with at least 3 resident members in addition to who's the city member and who's a council member, Shannon.
Mayor Yates is the city member and Mrs. Stauffer is the council member for community outreach.
Okay.
I'll volunteer myself for that committee as well.
Excellent. Thank you. That was Akil?
That's correct.
I think Greg and I.
I'm sorry, Maureen, what was that?
Well, I'm not sure. I think Greg and I think, Greg, did we talk about you being on this committee and I'll do the,
I certainly can, whichever you would prefer. It doesn't make a difference to me.
okay. All right, Shannon. So if you want, if you don't, he'll be on I'll be on the, I forget what the other committee was. I don't have the form in front of me. But we can talk about it tomorrow at the council meeting, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We
Do we
still
have
need
2
one more for
people?
this one? Do we still need one more?
So we
At
had
least.
Asia and Akil and Mayor Yates and one of the council people. So yeah, 1 more would be great.
I can get on.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Learning.
And that
I'm
being
sorry,
said, I
I
think
was-
one of the things that we talked about was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was looking down. Who else said that they would participate?
Me.
Larnie, thank you.
Marnie. I was just going to say, one of the things that Shannon mentioned last meeting was you're not strictly married to your committee. So if you did want to attend these other subcommittee meetings, you absolutely can. I probably will attend, but I do want to be on the Justice Committee. I'm really interested in that data. So just showing my cards. Okay. So let's try to come up with a couple of initiatives to get this group started with. All right. So
Lavelle, if I could, we still technically need a sub chair. We have committee members now.
Okay.
So, I like the
So
idea of co-chair if 2 people are willing.
yes. There's a formal way to do this that I'm going to butcher. So I'm just going to ask you who is willing to serve as a co-chair of this committee. I'll get better, I promise. Oh, I think we have a community member who's commented in the chat, Yolanda Lawler. I think you already have a community member to reach out to, community committee. Okay, so let's do this. Akil, Asia, and Larnie, would you be willing to rotate the duties of chair rather than one of you shouldering it?
Yeah,
And-
I'll assist.
Thank you.
I'll be working with you guys, all the co-chairs and sub-chairs closely for stuff. So you're not like on your own. And you also have the Mayor Yates on this committee too, and one of our council people. So it's a good committee and we're all here to help. So it's just strictly running the meeting and working on an agenda with me mainly. So
I got it.
And she makes most of that super duper easy. You should probably read the rules, which I clearly did a poor job of before this meeting. So thank you everyone who has volunteered. Akil, Asia, and Larna, you all will work with Shannon to schedule the subcommittee meeting. And I think for the larger group, if we could maybe give them 3 points to get them started. I'm just looking back over what everyone shared here. I think the first key is that we all agree we need to hear from the community. So maybe first step is let's talk about the mediums through which we plan to do that. So how, right? Surveys, focus groups, social media, what's the plan for that? So how to get the feedback from the community. And then I think it's wise to just start looking at what some other communities have done. And maybe I'll share the ones that I looked at with you all. And then if you all find additional ones online, maybe talk through those and see what recommendations you like.
Okay.
Awesome. And then does anybody have an idea for a third? Or maybe sticking with 2 bullet points to start is a good thing? I'm not sure. What do you think?
Or
When we
we could
start thinking
maybe
about
look at,
questions.
Yeah. What about if we identify the way to communicate with our community? What are the questions we're gonna be asking them? I think we need to ask that as well.
Right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have a subcommittee.
Okay.
All right. So Shannon, do we need to like move, or is there is there a formal way to declare this?
We'll take the action that you've had already as
Thank you.
formalized.
Awesome. All right. So we will move to item 4 on the agenda, which is unfinished business. I think we've done a nice job of putting a bow on the purpose of this meeting, so I'm really excited about that. But is there anything from the last meeting that we wanted to discuss while we're all together?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm just checking photos to make sure nobody's
maybe
doing this
Lavelle,
thing.
I'll just throw out there. So our next meeting, we'll be doing this similar exercise as it relates to the police and justice or committee,
Yes.
subcommittee, correct? So
Correct.
we can give some thought over the next 2 weeks to similar goals and objectives that we would like, and anybody that's interested in those specific committees, I think might be a good idea. And if anybody has anything, get it to us, get it to Shannon, get it to me. We'll get it out there beforehand, so everybody has that going into March 8th.
Yeah. Dave, I'm assuming you're going to be the employee on that committee. Is that right?
I am, yes.
Okay.
And I think if not, I think Jeremy is going to be on it, and I'm sure we'll see some of Larnie also on that one. But
Awesome. Okay. All right. So we have a plan for going into March 8th. Is there any new business for the council to address, committee to address?
I have just one suggestion. So it looks like we made some progress here a little bit on the first subcommittee in about 40 minutes. The next meeting, we will be in person. If we took an hour or maybe to address kind of the next 2 committees, if that's possible,
Yeah.
to get those formed. And then as we look at this pattern of every 2 weeks, maybe subcommittees meet on our off, main in-person meeting, whether they choose to meet in person or via Zoom, so that we kind of stay on this 2-week pattern where, full meeting of the whole group and then subcommittee meeting, full meeting every 2 weeks. So just a suggestion on how to kind of structure that versus trying to, group and schedule.
I like that. We have a motion from the floor to amend the agenda for March 8th to add, what was the third subcommittee? the agenda. So we'll do justice and police. And Shannon, what's our third one?
City employment
City employment
diversity.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Is
We have a motion from the floor.
Is that okay with everyone?
Did you make the motion? I'll second it. Or do you want me to make the
I think, can you make it?
motion? To extend to, to amend the agenda to include forming the other subcommittees.
Thank you, Maureen. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Larnie?
Second.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion properly seconded to amend the agenda for March 8th to include discussion of both the Justice and Police Reform Subcommittee along with the, I'm sorry, give it to me one more time.
City employment diversity.
The City Employment Diversity Committee. All in favor? Aye. Oh,
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, ayes have it. All right. You guys, I promise it'll get better. I'm sorry. Okay.
Great.
Mary Yates, thank you. That's a great suggestion. All right. So anything miscellaneous that we've not brought up? Hearing quiet. Unless there's nothing else, I believe I can give you back 19 minutes of your evening and we can adjourn this meeting 18 minutes. Meeting adjourned at 6:42 p.m.